Evening, fellas. Good to see you all again for
Evening.
another episode of the Blind Pig, courtesy of BGObsession.com. Run through the quick intros. Top left is John. He hails on the board as Boone. Bottom left is Paul. You can find him as Canadian Hog. Bottom right is Bob. Hails as Neophyte. Top right is Mark. He hails as Ohm. And my name is Derek. You can catch me as Silent Threat. So come by the board. Hang out, let us know. Also on the YouTube channel, I know this is a small feather in five very large hats that we like to wear, but apparently we hit 5,000 YouTube hits, which
All
for us
right.
is kind of cool because I just realized it today when I was looking at the page. Not a big deal, but it is kind of cool. It is a benchmark, so it only took us a lot 500,000 videos to get there. But anyways,
Is this the point where we do the swing by, like, and subscribe plug?
that's right. Exactly.
Every other
Exactly. Hit the follow button. But so we were talking a little bit before we jumped on. I think the obviously the news of the day is the trades. I don't know that we can really talk too much, or that there's a ton more to talk about around the team that's worth spending an entire podcast on, but we can get a little bit into Philly. But instant reaction, I'm curious to hear you guys. What do you think? Chase Young's gone, Montez Sweat gone, the return on the investment, and I'd like to hear it.
So I'm going to jump off first here because, that's what I always do. I I guess my first thing is I don't really get fans sometimes when we've been screaming for major change, right? We finally get major change and we don't, and we freak out the first time, the new owner makes a kind of a bold move. So that's my first point. And then I just want to say a couple things about Chase Young. I think everyone's sad to see Montez Sweat go, even though I think we got a great deal for him. But the folks that are mad about Chase Young, I'm just going to rattle off a couple things here. First of all, 30 GMs did not think Chase Young was worth better than even a third round pick, right? We found one team that was willing to give us a compensatory third round pick. So if we're terribly wrong about him, so is every other GM in the league. Blame Dan Snyder if you want to be mad at somebody, because if you look back in 2019, he forced the front office to draft Dwayne Haskins, and then he forced the coaching staff to play Dwayne Haskins in 2020. If that had not been the case, who knows who we draft in 2020? It might have been Tua or Justin Herbert or somebody else. So the whole fact that Chase Young got drafted, I think it really was set up by the whole fact that Dan Snyder thought we had a franchise quarterback in Dwayne Haskins. When your first round draft pick for 6 out of 7 drafts is a defensive player, that's the other thing. It's like, yeah, it was unfortunate that we kind of got ourselves in a situation where we couldn't afford to keep the guys that maybe we wanted, whether we wanted them or not. But that's what happens when you do that. And so that was just poor planning from the previous regimes. And then finally, the last thing I just want to say is, what are we afraid of, Washington fans? We were 28, 45, and 1 from the day that we brought Montez Sweat onto the team since 2019. And we've had one playoff appearance. We didn't just break up the Beatles. That's my final point. We did not. Okay. It's going to be okay. It really will.
Those are very good points, John. I guess if we're talking about reactions, I'll piggyback off what you said. I'm very content. I'm very happy. When I saw that those trades went down, I was smiling. All throughout the Snyder years, we've always had this belief that we were 1, 2 players away. In reality, we were always a bottom to a middle of the road team and maybe a potential fringe playoff team at best. The goal is to win championships. Chase Young and Montez Sweat, as you were alluding to, were part of a core that has proven to me for the past 4 years that we're nothing more than a middle of the road team. Getting a 6th, getting a 7th playoff spot, making that playoff cameo appearance and losing in the first round, that for me as a fan, that's of no interest. That's not a reason to hold on to players in my belief. And that's not why I, as a fan, invest so much time into this and cheer. There needs to be higher expectations as an organization. There's nothing worse in the NFL or any sport than basically being stuck in the middle. And the fact is, the guys like Montez Sweat and Chase Young, although they have talent, they were part of a core that would just very simply have kept us in that muddy middle, so to speak. What I'm most happy about is that for the first time in forever, there appears to be a glimmer of hope that there's a true vision towards being great. And it seems as though there are higher organizational expectations now with our new ownership. These moves to me represent that the team is serious about winning for once. And sometimes that might involve swallowing a few bitter pills and letting some guys that are talented go and taking a few steps back. And I know that might be frustrating sometimes because, for instance, with Ron Rivera, we did a rebuild and that rebuild got us nowhere. And now we're going to be going back and starting over again. But so be it. People are going to be frustrated, but that's quite all right. If championships are the real goal, you leave no stone unturned and you make those hard decisions. And to me, this represents that Josh Harris and his group mean business for once. And I'm totally good with all of that.
Nice.
Hard to argue any of those points. And I'm totally in agreement with you. We can be the 31st ranked defense without you, but maybe we'll have the 15th ranked offense, right? Like, not, I don't know how much more plain to put it. I've been talking, people have been asking me over the last day and a half, what do I think? How do I feel? And I'm elated. I'm excited. I'm finally happy that we're looking at a situation where we're not trying to scrape together the final one or two games in a season to try to put something quote unquote better on paper, like to save face. How many times in the past have we done that where you look at things and say, yeah, we probably should have traded that guy. The Brandon Sheriffs of the world, the Christian, the Jesus Christ, not Kirk Cousins, multiple players that we've found out had trade value, had trade opportunities, and instead of trading them for future assets, we held on to them as a team with the hopes of going from a 6-win team to an 8-win team because it looked better on NFL database. I'm if we need a lean year where we drop back down and we get into the top 5 again after 2024, as much as it's going to suck and as much as it's going to be frustrating that, we're wasting another year of John Allen and Terry McLaurin and Cam Curl and some of these other guys. We're talking about, we're on the cusp of having close to $100 million of salary cap money. Now 5 picks in the top 100, 3 in the top 60, in the top, what is that, 64?
45.
Huh?
In the top 45.
And 3 in the top 45 if the season ended today. I'm just going by flat third round picks. A new GM, possibly a new head coach, a new DC, a new most likely a new direction.
I heard that possibly. I
I
heard
know.
that possibly.
I know that got my blood pressure up a
You
little
need to retract that shit.
So I'm just saying there is a chance that Bieniemy is still the head coach here. Now there's nothing definitive obviously about that, but the point being is that there is going to be a completely new direction of this team in 2024. So why do you want to carry and potentially sign 1, possibly 2 more guys that are going to be anchors on your payroll when you're trying to completely restart? Allen and Payne, they've got their money at this point. Same with Terry. Not saying that I want to move on from those guys, but those guys are locked in. You build around that, you know what I mean? Instead of trying to crowbar a defensive line into a new defensive scheme, or how many times in the past we've been saddled with high value players that are force fed to the next regime that they have to deal with. They have to deal with Dwayne Haskins as a quarterback. They have to deal with Alex Smith as a quarterback because he's making as much as he is. Like, I'm so happy we're finally actually going to hit a reset button. And I think that we can go look at the teams in the NFL. There's a lot of teams that go from bad to good really quick. I heard on the radio, Grant and Danny rattled off 8 teams that had new head coaches. I think it was 8 that have had new head coaches after we hired Rivera or the same season that have either had a playoff victory, or that have either made an appearance or had a playoff victory. Like, it can happen a lot quicker than 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sensing Mark wants the last word on this. So I just normally you jump in sooner than this. So I'll say my piece and get out of your way, brother. I first of all, John, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't understand what fans are scared of. I've been reading Twitter for 24 hours now, and I tell you what it is, and my wife said something about this, some similar. Everybody wants change, but they want the change they want, and they all have an idea of what that change is. And when you change, but don't change the way they want you to change, suddenly they're all pissed off. I actually want to go back a little further. I'm a little sad that we had to do this, and I'm a little sad we had to do this because I really would have liked to have seen what the group we had on Sunday would have done with a modern, aggressive defensive coordinator. I really don't feel like our talent is being used correctly. We're talent deficient at a few positions. Linebacker, Mark. But the point is that we've got some real talent on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't feel like we've used it correctly. And I feel like today was made inevitable by the fact that Ron Rivera is so stuck in his ways that he refused to admit that the guy he picked to be his defensive coordinator 3.5 years ago was the wrong guy. Which has me eating a little bit of crow because 3.5 years ago, I was thrilled to see Jack Del Rio come on board. I really felt like Jack was going to be the answer to most of our problems. He was going to be the answer to vanilla ice cream and every other thing that's plagued the defensive side of the football in Washington since Greg Williams left town, to be honest with you. And I've been sorely disappointed in both myself for believing it and Jack for what he's put on the field. And so I feel like yesterday became inevitable, not so much because we had 4 first-round picks, although that was absolutely asinine to put 4 first-round picks into what is essentially a single position group. 4 straight years. And look at the opposite side of the football and what our line looks like over there, and you just got to scratch your head. Any smart football fan scratches their head when they do that. But I feel like we had the bits and the pieces to have a real wrecking crew on defense, and it just never happened because Jack is determined to play a read and react kind of a defense instead of tailoring it to the talents of the guys that he had. I also want to say I'm a little disappointed in the fact that we got rid of the 2 we got rid of. They're not. The defensive line is ranked differently in my head. John Allen is the clear stud of the defensive line in my mind. Montez Sweat would have been number 2. He would have been the next to last guy I would have gotten rid of. I'd have traded Jerron Payne yesterday in a heartbeat. He had a brilliant season last year. Other than a couple of fumbles, he hasn't done much for me this year. A couple of forced fumbles. I don't slowly but surely he is proving my fears from last year correct. I hope there's just something weird wrong scheme wise, or maybe he's not completely healthy and he turns it around and the end of the season turns into the game wrecking defensive tackle he was last year. But I'm not seeing it at the moment, and I'm afraid I'm not going to see it going forward without Sweat playing on the outside on his outside shoulder. On the other hand, I remember 6 games last year when Sweat and Chase Young were both out, and our defense got better. And I fully expect the defense to get better this weekend against the Patriots, and not just because we're playing the Patriots. I expect the defense to come out and show up in a really big way. I don't think Sweat was the problem. I really don't. I think Chase Young's kind of been sleepwalking through things. I think he looks for big splash plays, and otherwise, he's just kind of out there. I've seen way too many video clips over the last 2 or 3 weeks of him almost unengaged. He feels almost uninterested in playing football in the middle of a football game. In practice is one thing, but if you're walking through a live action game that counts like you would walk through a Saturday practice in the hotel ballroom of an away game, there's something seriously wrong. And go check out the video clips that people have put up of every snap Chase Young took against Philly on Sunday. And he's not going anywhere near full speed on about 90% of them. In
and
fact,
it's while trade rumors are swirling. That's the
yeah,
part that really gets me is
and
that
he
was
looks like he's trying to slow dance with that offensive tackle. I don't understand. But so I have absolutely no problem with trading Chase. I wasn't thrilled about trading Montez. However, I kind of agree with the team. The return on a player that he's 27, you've gotten 4.5 pretty good years out of him. He's going to want big money next year. Do we want to pay him big money? I don't know. Were we even certain he would be willing to stay here unless we franchise tagged him? And if we franchise tagged him, did we think he was worth that money? There are a lot of factors that go into it. The guy apparently, reportedly, really wanted to go to Atlanta when we traded him to Chicago. If you listen to his press conference today, he basically told everybody in Chicago he's keeping his options open so he can test free agency in the off season. And what that said to me is he wants to get closer to home, and Chicago's not it. So it feels to me like Chicago dealt us a second-round draft pick for a guy they're going to have for 9 games when they have no hope of making the playoffs. So thank God there's a front office somewhere in the NFL that's dumber than we are. There you go. But all right, there's my piece for the moment. Go for it, Mark.
That's kind of where I am too on those two guys. Neither one of them, I don't think, even if we weren't switching to a new regime, that either one of those guys would have been willing to re-sign here for anything less than premium edge DE money. And I don't think either one of them is worth that kind of money. I wouldn't have been happy with paying them that. I don't think either one of them is the game record that you'd like to have if you're going to lay out $20 or $25 million for an edge rusher. But Philadelphia, I kept thinking, we want to talk about Philadelphia, and the game itself was such a classic representation of Commanders games over the last 20 years, right in the middle of a season. They show up, and it's a pretty good effort on one side of the ball. I know we're going to talk about Sam Howell and all that, and that's like the big bright spot to me, a big glaring sun of a bright spot. Defensively, were any of us surprised that the team got, I don't want to use an inappropriate word, that they got abused again on, they were 0.1% behind the 32nd position in scoring in the NFL. We're giving up like 28.6, and the 32nd team is giving up like 28.7 or something like that. We're right there. So no, I'm not sad to see these guys go competitively. I am way closer. Let me see if I can try to tie this all into where I was hoping to go with this. This Philadelphia game is going to be memorable to me, but not for any of the reasons that took place on the field. It's going to be because this is that game. This is the fulcrum game that transitions us from what was old to what is going to be new. It is the Rubicon has been crossed. There's no going back. What's another tired cliche I can use? The event horizon. We have crossed the event horizon here, my friends, and there's no going back.
I think there's a classic Ohm blog here that really needs to be written, Mark.
The rapture came, and the only guys that made the cut were Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Everybody else is still stuck in
they're out early, but what it means for longtime Washington fans and people who actually care about this thing still, and I know that we've lost a lot of people along the way who don't care anymore. I still do care, and I felt ever since yesterday between 3 and 4 p.m. when everything started happening, or at least when I started becoming aware of it, was that, oh my God, it's actually happening. It is actually happening. This is Josh Harris and company planting their flag loud and clear in the middle of an NFL season, saying, yeah, this is a team that is in the running, we're still in the mix and all that. If there had been no trades yesterday and the decision had been made that we're playing out the string and we're going to keep trying to win games, I wouldn't be feeling as good as I am right now. What I'm feeling is like this big breath of fresh air finally came blowing in just for what it means. It's not about the two players. It's about what it means that new ownership, despite the obvious awkwardness, right, that they're not really in charge yet because their people aren't running the show, but somebody told Ron, this is what we'd really like you to do. So it happened. Again, there's no going back. What's going to be interesting is there's so much that plays out during the rest of this season now that we're going to have to deal with, and that's how many players in the locker room aren't going to be disaffected by this. Some will. Some of them are going to be chasing Montez guys, and they're not going to be very happy about being here. That's all going to have to get sorted out by whoever comes next. We are going to see if things go as badly as they did for Ron Rivera in the last 24 hours. To me, some of the things he was saying at his press conference today and bringing up Sam Howell when he's asked about the defensive line, well, I really like the young quarterback. 24 hours ago, I would have thought there's no way the head coach get fired in the middle of the season. Now I'm not so sure.
Mark,
Another couple of weeks like this.
Ron sounded like Admiral Stockdale in the 1992 vice presidential.
Who am I? Why am I here?
Why am I here?
Yeah, those were his lines. That's exactly right. So what's really interesting to me. Okay, so then I'll shut up after this. One more thing about Philadelphia. If a couple of plays had gone differently in that game, we don't need to go back into them. If Ron throws the challenge flag and we end up having the ball back at midfield late in the third quarter with a 7-point lead and we score again and win that game, things might look a little different. We might not be talking about what we're talking about right now. So there's a lot of reasons for me to remember this Philadelphia game. I've never been happy ever to see my team lose a game, but the way I'm feeling right now, that is the final straw that I don't know, the finger in the dam, whatever silly metaphor or cliche we want to use. It happened because that game got lost, and it's all bets are off now, fellas.
And I think Rivera looked so hapless in that game. That's the other part of it. You know, the whole challenge incident where everyone is screaming at the TV for the challenge flag. Philadelphia is rushing to get the next playoff, which tells you they know that it should be challenged. And Ron Rivera cannot. I don't know if he didn't take his Geritol. I don't know what was going on with him, but I think that was just a perfect collage of why he cannot be the coach going forward.
And the game in general as a whole proved just how much this team has been hamstrung by coaching. I mean, that group gave a great effort this past Sunday, but you think back to, like you said, about the non-challenge on the part of Rivera. In the first half, we were in total control of the game. He goes for it on 4th and 1, and then Bieniemy calls a play that absolutely didn't stand a chance to be converted even before the snap. Like, it looked like a dead play from the get-go. And then Del Rio follows that up by going prevent and basically inviting the Eagles to go down, score a touchdown before half, and take momentum and take control of the whole game. Everything flipped during that whole sequence. And I mean, it was a snapshot of, I mean, there's deficiencies on the team, you know, with our talent and whatnot. But at the same time, oh my goodness, if that was not a direct reflection of how much this team has been hamstrung by coaching over the years, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Mark, I want to slightly disagree. I'm not sure winning that game on Sunday changes what happens yesterday. Reading guys that I trust, and a couple of others, and a couple of new voices that I've never really heard before, but seem to be fairly plugged in. It sounds like these two trades have largely been being worked on for 10 days now. And it feels to me like Harris and company made the decision quite a while ago that they were going to get what they could get for at least one of these guys. Keim is adamant that they really only wanted to trade one of them, and the unspoken piece in there is that they really wanted to get rid of Chase Young.
Yes, I saw that. I agree with that.
But But I think win, lose, or draw on Sunday. I think yesterday goes down pretty much the same way.
Well,
Uh,
let's extend it then, because when I originally thought about that whole thing about the one or two plays in that game, let's extrapolate and say that one or two plays also go differently in the Giants game at the end. And right now the team is 5-3. Do you think this happens? Do you think Chase is gone?
I
No,
think
because I think you have a realistic shot at them. And I mean, if you're 5-3 and you knock off a division team and you've beat Philadelphia, who's supposed to be in, I mean, the feel of the team is different. But had you beat the Giants, that means your offense isn't completely inept against an inferior opponent, and your defense wasn't leaking like a sieve.
Maybe not. They only needed one play. They needed one.
Yeah, but we've been one play, like Josh Harris isn't stupid. We're one play away from being 6-1. We're also one play away from being 1-6. Like,
Well, so
like
this is what I'm trying to get at. Think this is how close we are to arguably not making the changes that we're talking about.
right. Well,
A
and
couple of plays here and there.
I
that's
think
fair.
it all goes to, it's not about Chase Young and Montez Sweat. It all goes to Ron Rivera and whether or not the new ownership group has any confidence, even just like hypothetical openness to having him come back at some point. And I think what this game showed, he's all season long, he said, what's kept us back in the past, the reason we haven't turned the corner is we haven't had a quarterback. We haven't had a quarterback. We haven't had a quarterback. There's a reason why he mentioned Sam Howell's name every 35 seconds during a press conference now. It's because
that's the highest thing on the team
it's
right
the
now.
most exciting thing we've got, right? But guess
Right.
what? It has not translated into. It has not translated into winning games because our defense is fucking horrible. I mean, and so they're looking
Well,
at that.
and
It
I would
doesn't
even
matter
argue. Sorry, John. I would even argue the Eagles game was as much, and I hate using this as an excuse, but the Eagles were gifted 14 points by the referees. So if you really want to break it down, they should not have gotten a 4th-and-4 conversion, which takes 7 points off the board, and then the Dotson catch, then New York decides it's not a catch, then we challenge. Inexplicably, they told Rivera that New York turned it over, and then he challenges it to New York to look at it again. Like, what are you doing? So if ifs and buts were candy and nuts or whatever that stupid saying is, I get it. But to be fair, we could have won that game had the Commanders not done one single thing different.
I think Mark's point, though, and I mean, I think we're all saying the same thing, coming at it from different directions. But I think Mark's point, what I heard was they seized control away from Ron Rivera. They said, "You've done enough.
Yeah.
We're going to make a critical decision, and you're going to carry it out because we don't trust your judgment anymore." And that, to me, is what happened in the last 10 days.
The mantle has been passed, right? That it's over. There is no going back now. And I don't think there was ever a chance that Ron was coming back anyway, absent maybe us going to the NFC Championship game and everything. All of a sudden, the light comes on and the team looks great. Then, yeah, you probably hire him for another year or two. But I think we all knew that wasn't going to happen. I never for 1 minute this entire season thought I saw anything different about. I take that back. After the first 2 games, I did. And going into Chicago, I bought it. I bought it hook, line, and sinker, much to my own chagrin now. I should know better. But I bought it for that 1 week. I think I wrote on the board, this is the most confident I've ever been in going into a football game in the last 20 years with this team. And they did what they did against Chicago. So what happens for the rest of the year now, guys? Are we... If you're Rivera, if you're Harris, you kind of want to win games because you play to win the game, but you also wouldn't mind that draft pick, like sliding up and getting some more munition for the next guys too. I haven't decided quite how I feel about the rest of the year. I want to see Sam continue to play well and develop, not get his brains beat in. I don't really care about the defense, Bob, you were saying before, probably is going to play a little bit better because they're going to play together, and Jack's going to have to be a little bit more creative and not just send the front 4 and assume they're going to win. So the games are going to be competitive and we'll probably win some, but I'm in that weird position now of not really knowing how many more games I want my team to win this year.
So I think there's two ways to look at this, Mark. As a fan base, as the five of us talking people on a Zoom chat while we do a podcast, I think the best case scenario is to get the highest possible draft pick in the draft. But from the team's perspective, I am a firm believer that you don't accept losing for any reason.
Right.
John Allen, Terry McLaurin, Daron Payne, Sam Howell, every guy in there, I hope they don't lose every game because I don't want them to accept losing for any reason. Like, I want the mentality in that locker room to be, I don't give a shit what we're up against. I don't care who's not in the building anymore. We are going into every game with the intention to win, with the belief we're going to win. We're going to prepare like we can win, period.
Yeah, so I'm actually that's an excellent point, and I'm not concerned that the guys that we would want to have back next year would do that.
Right.
McLaurin, Allen, professionals.
Yeah, they're going to win.
Are going to play professionally because I mean they want to be here. They want jobs. They're proud. I'm not worried about those guys, but I think there are going to be some guys who kind of check out, and that it's hard to win when only some of your guys are going 1,000%.
I'm actually not worried about the players. I'm worried about the coaches completely checking out, maybe even more so than they already have. I mean, I think Del Rio and Rivera have already read the handwriting on the wall. I have felt that way since week 3 or 4, that there's not a lot of fire there. I don't know how there obviously there is with EB. EB desperately has a dream to be a head coach in this league, and he is going to do anything and everything he can do to be as successful as humanly possible. I don't know about Jack and the defensive coaches. I really don't. And I feel like maybe the entire coaching staff, with the possible exception of EB and the guys that he brought in, feel like dead men walking. And I'm a little worried about that. The flip side of that is I feel like after yesterday, every single guy on this football team got put on notice. Play, or we'll get rid of you and find somebody that will. We don't care if you're a first-round pick. We'll replace you with a 7th-round pick.
Well, they can't be traded now, but they could certainly be benched if we had a coaching staff that actually benched players who weren't performing well and put in someone else.
That's a whole pod in and of itself about why Jack didn't. You've got a guy like Casey Toohill who's performing. Why don't you just flip the snap count between he and Chase and make Chase sit on the sideline and watch somebody? Talk about hitting the man in the pride, but. I look at this and every single player walked into the locker room today and went, they traded 2 starting first-round draft picks yesterday. One of whom they got a compensatory 3rd-rounder for, and they were fine with that. And all the reports were, if they hadn't gotten that, they'd have taken a 4th or a 5th. Hell, it sounds to me like we'd have taken a ham sandwich and a 6-pack of lousy beer to get Chase Young out of the building. And so every guy on the team comes in today going, I'm playing for my NFL career. At least I would hope that they would come in and look at that and think that. But I still expect this team to finish somewhere between 6 and 8 wins. Even looking at the murderer's row we supposedly have, because every single team left on our schedule has stubbed their toe against somebody they shouldn't have stubbed their toe against. Dallas laid an absolute egg against Arizona. They could do that against Washington. We play them the last week of the season. If they have nothing to play for, it could look just like last year's game. We've got the New York Giants on the schedule again. They don't look any better. Good Lord, they had -9 yards passing on Sunday.
Not against us, Bob.
No, not against us, but -9 yards, John. Oh, come on.
They've got Danny DeVito.
You're trying to make me feel better. That's what made me feel better.
Granted, it was against the Jets, and the Jets have a pretty good defense, but I look at the rest of our season and I go, I could see us potentially winning any of these games. I can also see us potentially losing any of those games. And just knowing the way Ron works, I figure 6 to 8 wins by the end of the season.
So this takes a lot of pressure off of us as fans, right? We go into every week thinking, well, we could win this game and that would be great, but we could lose it and get a higher draft pick. So
I don't expect it to be any different from any other Washington game I've watched in the last 5 or 6 seasons. I think the most important thing, though, as far as the rest of the way, is I want to see if we had all sat down and watched that Sam Howell performance at the beginning of the year before the season started, if we somehow could teleport and see that video of him, what he did last Sunday and that offense, we would be freaking out at the prospects of the future. But what I want to see is I don't want to see Bieniemy revert back to some of the stuff, nonsensical stuff, dropping them back, straight back, watching him get sacked, double digits. I want to see that type of performance the rest of the way. I want to see Sam Howell making quick throws, looking confident, getting protection for long enough to make the play, mixing in a little play action. That was an amazing. I mean, that's the sad thing about everything that's going on in the last week is that's what we should be talking about is holy hell. That was, I mean, the kid that threw for almost 400 yards. That was an amazing
touchdown
performance by Sam Howell. And I want to see a hell of a lot more of that. And I don't know if Eric Bieniemy has any future in Washington, but even if he doesn't, he could go a long way towards being an OC on a big time program or even a head coach if he can do a lot more of that last Sunday, what we saw. That was incredible.
I'm so proud of Sam, and it would be negligent of us if we didn't point out that there were a couple of glaring rookie type mistakes there. The interception was not good, and apparently, Paul, on that 4th and 1. By the way, I pulled my hair out when I saw I wasn't watching it live. I saw what they said about the play that we were passing on 4th and 1. You were passing on 4th and 1. But I know that it was an ill-advised pass he threw, and I have not gone and looked at the all 22s on this, but what I understand is that I think it was Curtis Samuel is flashing wide open, uncovered for a touchdown on that play.
Yeah.
Might have been the first read, and Sam didn't see it. So,
well, the other 49 passes look pretty great.
All of this is understandable in a game where you're throwing 50x passes, right? And you throw for 400 yards. I got nothing bad to say about the kid. I love what I'm seeing. And I hope that they're able to protect him and give him grown-up game plans like we had against Philadelphia the rest of the way to give him a chance to actually develop, like we were saying last week, and not be sitting on his ass trying to throw over the Berlin Wall.
Mark, it was painfully obvious on that 4th down. If you look at it, they got the look they wanted. It was single high safety, or it might have been cover 2, but Terry was one-on-one with Slay, and that you could tell by the way that Sam Howell's body language was that was the throw. They had one-on-one. It was the matchup they wanted. It was counting on Terry to get separation on the inside. He did not even hesitate to look over and look at the matchups pre-snap. It was blatantly obvious that the throw, if it was one-on-one, Terry McLaurin, he was going to Terry the whole way, so you can blame. I don't hold that one on Howell. There are a lot of people pointing out on Twitter that play, but you can see that they got what they wanted, and he made the throw to the coverage that they clearly wanted.
Well, and given the context of everything that went into that game beforehand, is what does he have to do? Get rid of the ball, make quick decisions.
Right.
It's easy enough to understand why he rushed some things, and that's better than waiting too long. I'd rather he miss early that way than wait late, get his ass kicked, have the ball get turned over or something.
These were the categories we won last Sunday, guys. First downs, net yards, rush yards, pass yards, red zone efficiency, goal to go efficiency, time of possession. We won almost every possible offensive category. We outplayed Philadelphia, and we still managed to dick it up somehow.
I totally agree with you, Derek. I feel like, in fact, watching that play, I said to my wife, I said, they're going to throw this to McLaurin. It's going to be quick. He's not even going to look at anybody else. And it felt to me like I can almost hear EB's words going, if Terry's got one-on-one single coverage, you go to Terry immediately. I can almost hear him saying that in Sam's headset, right? And so I don't have a problem with it. I also don't have a problem with the 2 late throws that Terry dropped. Neither of them were great, but especially the second one should be almost a routine catch for any number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. Number 1 wide receivers in the NFL make hard catches look easy every single day.
Especially Terry.
Especially Terry. Yep.
And he'll tell you the same thing. That's a guy I'm not worried about.
I have absolutely no doubt that after the game, Terry and Howell spent an inordinate amount of time apologizing to each other for those 2 plays. That's what I see in my head is that both of them, because Howell got up in front of the media and said, I went to Terry and told him I've got to do better, that I've got to make it easier for him. And I feel fairly certain Terry looked at him and went, I should have had both of them.
Absolutely.
So, it is what it is. And again, I'm wildly optimistic at the moment.
Can you guys believe they trotted Forbes back out against one of the MVP candidates on offense again?
Ron said that's just the way it worked out, right? Well, he was out there, and that's the package. And they're pretty smart, and they saw he was out there.
So they believe it, man. I saw him going out there. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing, man?
I was less upset with that one play, John, than I was the fact that we saw this team 3 weeks ago and apparently made no adjustments to solve the problem of A.J. Brown at all. I didn't see any changes other than the fact that it wasn't Forbes covering him. And I don't get how A.J. Brown is making every single defense in the NFL look like a junior, like a Pop Warner team right now.
That was his 6th game with 120 yards plus.
Yeah, 5th consecutive.
6 games in a row.
If I had been the defensive coordinator, I'd have walked in last Monday and looked at my team and said, I don't care what else happens. A.J. Brown doesn't beat us. Maybe it's actually this week. Maybe it's one of the running backs. I don't care, but it is not A.J. Brown.
We have some problems even when we do try to take him away, right? On the 1 touchdown in the left front corner of the end zone, we've got him double teamed. Unfortunately, both of our guys are behind him.
Right.
Both of our guys are like on top of each other. Forbes and whoever the safety was, I didn't catch it, but
and that was Forbes. Forbes should have had.
Forbes was there, and he almost made the play. I mean, he's right there, but the safety is also behind him, and that's a problem with the scheme or somebody just not doing their job.
Well, and all right, so we kind of haven't talked about it, but Darrell Green had some fairly pointed comments before the football game about Forbes and the coaching he's not getting. I mean,
yeah, who wants to weigh in on Darrell?
He said, "Hey, I'm here for him. I'd love to give him some info." What do you feel, Paul?
In regards to Darrell Green's reaction
and Forbes?
Well, I think it ultimately comes back to I mentioned it earlier tonight. This team is completely hamstrung by coaching. Like these players, in many regards, are being asked to play with 2 hands tied behind their back. I don't think our coaches are putting our players in a position to succeed. And I mean, with a guy like Forbes, like the guy is struggling, you're trying to build his confidence back up, and you're building his confidence back up supposedly by putting him out there again against a guy who absolutely abused him a few weeks ago. So, I mean, you're doing more harm than good to these guys, and this coaching staff needs to go and go quick.
It's hard to hide a guy, right? If you trot out a starting cornerback and you put him out there, the other team is, if they're doing their job, they're going to make sure that they pick him out in a matchup. And as soon as they saw Forbes on the field, AJ goes to that side of the field and let's see what you got, kid. So if I may, speaking of coaching, next week we're going up against arguably the best defensive coordinator in the history of the NFL. He's certainly in the top 5, top 10. What do we think that EB versus Bill Belichick is going to look like on behalf of Sam Howell this week?
Well, they're a lot better against the run than they are the pass. So you have to think, I would think we're going to see more of what we saw against Philly, quick passes, lots of passes to the running backs. They give up a lot of points. I don't know. They don't give up a lot of yards, which I try to figure out how does that work in my mind. I think they're like 10th in points or 10th in yards, but 26 in scoring defense. So it's hard to reconcile that a little bit.
What I think is going to happen is Belichick's got the reputation of zeroing in on the one thing that you do best offensively and just taking it away and making you beat him doing something else. That's how he's won 47 championships. I think that he's going to look at the film, John, and he's going to do exactly what you're talking about, and then we want them to do: get the ball out quick, run the little flares, run the slants. I think there's going to be a lot of bodies and a lot of traffic and movement right on the line of scrimmage again. And he's going to try to confuse Sam the way that he confused poor Zach Wilson, who was seeing ghosts a year ago or 2 years ago when he played the first time. And I think that we are going to have to actually get the ball down the field. I think that's why maybe New England has given up some points. I think they're trying to take away that short stuff, and it's leaving some holes that can be exploited down the field. We're going to have to hit those. I think we're going to have a lot more big plays, unfortunately, this week to win the thing.
I think Bill is going to do his best Wink Martindale impersonation. You know, he's going to watch what Wink did against Sam Howell and how Sam got a little skittish by halftime because he didn't know where the next guy was coming from.
Yeah, he was seeing ghosts.
And I think Bill's going to do a certain level of that to address the whole scoring versus yards thing. I don't know this for a fact, but New England's offense has been horrible. I don't know how many giveaways they've got, but my guess is teams have been working with shorter fields against New England because of how bad the offense has been. And so that would account for some of that scoring versus yards thing, which brings up the defense. I think our defense is going to have to do a little bit of that this weekend and give Sam a short field to work with. Bill may not have the most talented team in the world, but he is a smart dude. And he sees a team reeling. He's going to see a team that's reeling, and he's going to see an opportunity for New England to get healthy.
Absolutely. And I think he's going to attack whoever starts at defensive end and is out there. He's going to attack them with the run and see who can set the edge and who can't, and what adjustments Jack has made to his normal schemes. This is going to be a kind of a coaching game to me, and that frankly concerns me a little bit for our guys. I think we're up against adults.
I don't think Belichick is losing sleep over facing Ron Rivera again.
I wouldn't be, right? I wouldn't be at this point.
They don't have much of an offense, though. You're right about that. They have more fumbles than rushing touchdowns in 2023, almost twice as many fumbles.
Well, that explains a lot of your disparity in yards, because Mac Jones isn't exactly lighting the world on fire, so there's probably a lot of short fields against them defensively.
What Mac is not is a particularly mobile quarterback. So maybe we can not get gashed and beaten on quarterbacks bailing out of the pocket and extending plays indefinitely like Hurts does as well as anyone I've seen recently. He's not going to be going down. He's not going to be running on us. He's going to be in the pocket where we can find him. We got to get there.
We have a better kicker. That's good news. Chad Ryland he's 4 for 6 from 40 to 49 yards, and he's only made 150 plus kick all year. He's missed 3 of those. So they got a very shaky place kicker. So I'm hanging my hat on that baby.
Hey, we got a guy who can make it from 61, right?
Set the franchise record.
Not 21, but 61. He's gold.
I could have sworn, because I'm old and remember some of these things, that Steve Cox kicked a 60-some yarder back in the day, back in Gibbs 1. I haven't gone back and looked. Obviously, he didn't. But there was one game where I could have sworn he kicked a 60-some yarder, and I forgot to look it up. But anyway. Remember, he was our straight-on kickoff specialist. We had a field goal kicker and a kickoff specialist on the roster on game days.
So is there anyone we're scared of on the Patriots offensively?
Well, they got that quarterback or that running back that you tried to turn us on to, Stevenson.
Yeah,
right?
Andre.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Well, they also just lost their number 1 receiver to a torn ACL. I don't think they have anybody. They scored 30 against Buffalo, and I think that equaled to their combined scoring across all the other games in this season, or close to it.
They've got two pretty good tight ends. They've got Hunter Henry and Gesicki, who are both respectable tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Mac Jones has thrown as many INTs as Sam has. Maybe this is the weekend our secondary stands up and takes football away.
It'd be nice.
Bold prediction: Emmanuel Forbes with his first pick six.
They're not much of a pass rushing team. I'm going to say they've got 7 sacks on the season. Maybe that's not all of them, but they've got 2 guys who Juden, who's one of their linebackers, and Christian Barrymore, who has like 3 sacks, and then everyone else has like 1 sack here. Like
when Judon is right, he's a game wrecker.
Yeah.
He's got 9 quarterback hits, 5 tackles for a loss, and 4 sacks. He's got the most numbers in terms of pass rush.
What do we want to do? Predictions now?
Yeah, we've determined already that we definitely want to win the game still, right? You play to win the games. So I'll jump in on this. I decided at about 4:00 on Sunday afternoon that Belichick was going to just toy with Del Rio and Ron, and we're going to win or lose a sloppy game where some discipline and our mistakes make the difference again. I think this could end up being like a 19-14 kind of game. Field goals and lots of ifs and almosts. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm not confident enough in Bieniemy overcoming Bill Belichick and scheming up a win offensively. And God knows what happens with our defense this week. It'll be interesting to see. So I'm going to go 19-14 Patriots.
So I picked us to lose 3 weeks in a row. We managed to pull out the Falcons game, but I'm going to pick us to win this one. I don't really know why. 24-14. I just don't think – Belichick's obviously a great coach in the grand scheme of things, but he does not have the horses. They have had a tough schedule. The only bad losses they had, relatively bad, were like Saints and Raiders they lost to. But, they lost to the Eagles, Dallas, and Miami twice. So get in line on those teams. But I just have a feeling I think we're going to see better defense. We almost have to see better defense, not because of Chase Young and Montez, but last week was bad. To get 2 forced fumbles inside your own 5-yard line or whatever it was and still lose the game, that is just epically bad. It shouldn't even be possible to lose that kind of a game. So I think they're going to bounce back and play better. And I don't think they have the guns to stop us on defense, despite being pretty good against the rush. I think we can beat them in the air, and we will. 24-14.
Paul, how you feeling, brother?
I'm personally worried that our team is checked out. I think it was Bob who was alluding to it earlier, that there are likely a lot of guys in that locker room that were Chase Young and Montez Sweat guys, and falsely believing that we were legitimately a team that can still make some noise on this season. I'm worried that the team doesn't show up, that a lot of guys on this roster feel as though there's no point to this type thing. I think the checkout factor can be a real thing this coming week. What I do want to see, obviously, is the continued development to Sam Howell, and I think that's why I continue to watch the rest of this season. He's played really, really well in spurts this year. We've seen some great games. We've seen some ugly games. We haven't really seen him put together like a string of 2 or 3 really solid starts in a row. And I'd like to see him start developing a pattern of consistency. I think that the New England game provides him with a great opportunity to hopefully do that. And I want to see that consistency. I want to see that continued growth and development. But again, I think there's going to be a lot of guys in that defensive unit that have potentially checked out, and I think we're also going to lose an ugly game. I don't know. Call it 17-16 Patriots.
With an almost air of desperation, I want to say a tie ball game.
A tie ball game.
Yeah, it's the realms of possibility are pretty slim there, but I conversely, as opposed to what Paul just said, I don't feel like the team has checked out, and I feel like there are going to be a couple of guys on defense this weekend starting who are going to be desperate to prove that they are the guys that should be doing the job. My guess is it's going to be Hill and Smith Williams. Although I would like to see Andre this weekend. I don't think we've seen him in an actual game yet. And we all know that our coaches don't seem to be able to figure out exactly who their best starting lineup is. So maybe this kid's got talent and we just aren't willing to play him because he was a 7th round draft pick. The only reason Curl got a job was because everybody ahead of him got injured and they had to play him. And then they figured out that they should have been playing him all along. So I think the team gets motivated out of yesterday, and I think the team gets motivated out of nearly beating Philadelphia twice and getting jobbed a little bit by the referees on Sunday. Hopefully all the guys in the locker room realize after yesterday that they're playing for an ownership group that means business. As opposed to the guys that have been around for years under the previous ownership and they knew there weren't going to be any consequences. Now guys know, nobody's safe. And so hopefully they play a little harder. The question is whether or not the coaches give them a game plan they can do anything with. And I'm gonna bank on EB to be able to do more against Bill than Bill's OC can do against Jack, even though I don't have a lot of faith in Jack. I'm going to say 21-17 Washington.
My gut tells me this is a game we win just because of that would make the most sense. That a game you're not, like why would we have any real explanation to be able to win this football game? But being a fan of the team and looking at the team, I don't know that we travel well enough. I think we lose a close one, 20-17.
We've won more on the road than we have at home, right?
Yeah, but
home is like traveling. Home is like traveling.
Like a road game now.
I know, but I'm just saying. I mean, we're talking about going up into New England. That's.
It's not the old New England though, guy.
Oh no, I'm not talking about going. Oh, I know that. I'm not saying we're going to get our doors blown out. Like I said, if you my gut tells me we have every reason to win. Like we'll pull this out. But looking at the team, we're still 3-5 team. We're a team that has routinely played down to our opponents. We're a team that struggled to go on the road to beat Atlanta. We got our doors blown off by Chicago, and we lost
Bears.
to the Giants 14-7. Huh? Like so just looking at the track record of this team does not show up when they're supposed to show up and win the games they're supposed to win with any sort of consistency. But that's
that was a downer of predictions, guys. I know we're checking out, but I want to circle back to I feel pretty damn good about where I am and where my team is as of this moment. A lot more than I've ever felt after a loss. The times are changing, my friends. We're counting down the last few games, watching young players hopefully develop. And then next off season is going to be unlike any we have ever seen around here.
Yeah. And I think now the focus is Sam Howell and the development. It's seeing what you've got in Brian Robinson. It's seeing what you've got in hopefully we see what we've got in some of these younger offensive linemen. You know what I mean? Why not let these guys get out there and try to prove it? Same thing with these D linemen. To your point, Andre Jones. That guy should be practicing routinely as a rotational piece with the first and the ones and twos this week. Like, why not? I mean, what do you have to lose? Do you need to see more from James Smith-Williams? He's a good depth piece, but he's a free agent going into next season.
I
So
think you guys are sleeping on Obata. Obata's the guy that I'm really going to be watching.
I agree, but he's a free agent going into next season. Like, if you really want to look at it, I think there's only 2 defensive edge guys that are under contract beyond the end of this year, and it's KJ Henry and it's Andre Jones. And Andre Jones might not even be that because he was signed off the practice squad.
I think we're going to see a big rotation on the line. I think it's going to be a lot of bodies. I think they're going to integrate Mathis back in. We might even see Mathis, Allen, and Payne all on the field at the same time in some alignments. It's going to be interesting to watch what he does with what he's got left the rest of the way.
Yeah. It's gonna be a fun game to watch, win, lose, or draw. I'm Mark, I'm with you. I feel better today than I did this time last week. And I think the reason I feel better today is because and I'm reading stuff into it, I'm sure, but it feels to me like we have an ownership group that looked and made a quantitative decision. Can we keep both of these guys? Do we want to keep both of these guys? And if the answer was, and apparently the answer was no, and then it becomes, what can we get for them? Not, all right, we're willing to just let them go at the end of the season, but their assets we're not keeping. Therefore, we need to get something for the asset, even if it's next to nothing, that's better than nothing. And I just appreciate that mentality.
Amen.
All right, fellas, been a pleasure for another week. We'll circle back around in 7 days and I'd likely more to talk about. Hopefully we can start digging into some of these younger guys, and unfortunately only 9 weeks in, be looking towards the future, but at least now we've readjusted our eye line a little bit, and we can focus on other things and not let losing dictate our day, I guess. All right, gentlemen.
Rock and roll, gents.
Night, guys.
Night.